take it from the fact that this gentleman was on a visa, is any immigration issues forming part of the investigation and may go to potentially a motive about this person's conduct?
I can't speculate. All I can say is that my advice is he's lawfully in Australia on a temporary graduate's visa.
Yesterday you were very clear that had this individual not lied, as the Premier put it quite succinctly, that the state would not have gone into lockdown. Now, just following on from what Professor Spurious said a minute ago, that seems to perhaps not be the case. Can you clarify?
Well, we've had intensive conversations with Professor Spurrier and other members of her health team. It is fair to say that had this person been more upfront with us, we would not have instituted a 6-day lockdown. But as the Professor has explained, this is like the straw that broke the camel's back. This is the one element that pushed us from the level of restrictions we were implementing on Tuesday to a much harsher regime. So we were in a position to control community movement as a result of the growing concerns around the Parafield cluster. But this one element was what you would describe as that one last piece of the jigsaw puzzle that pushed us into a decision point that we had to make that choice to impose severe restrictions for a 6-day period.
The Premier said yesterday that...
Did you bring him in yesterday and have you had intensive questioning with him?
I won't elaborate on the progress of the investigation. I will leave that to Assistant Commissioner Harvey and he will provide that in due course.
Commissioner, when does this individual's visa run out and will this person be deported beyond that?
Well, my advice at this stage is that his visa is current until mid-December. Whatever occurs in relation to his status as a person in Australia will be subject to the outcome of our investigation process.
The Premier said yesterday that something about this man's story didn't add up. Do you think it was appropriate to go into the lockdown scenario on the basis of his testimony, which had such question marks over it?
I think Professor Spurrier explained it really well, that the obligation on public health in dealing with a pandemic is to act quickly on the best information available at a point in time, and to wait until you have tied a ribbon around the package of information that you would rely on is in all likelihood leaving it too late to be effective in any actions you take. The concerns around the information provided by this individual arose as a result of a review of the circumstances and information that was at our disposal, and as a result of that, detectives went to speak to this person, which was when he made disclosures about the true circumstances. So I think the actions in the first instance were appropriate, and as Professor Spurrier has said, the contact tracing process is not as straightforward as people might expect it to be, and the need to act quickly is always there.
Did he live in the Woodville area? I mean, did it make sense?
I won't elaborate at this stage. I won't elaborate. We will provide as much information as we can as the investigation progresses, but I'm sure you can appreciate the process of investigating must take priority to providing little bits of information that might undermine the investigation process. Sorry?
Have the close contacts now been identified and are they in isolation now that you have the correct information?
That's part of the process that's underway at the moment, is to identify all people associated with this particular individual who has tested positive, and also those people from the pizza bar cluster that may need to be followed up. We're doing that work. I don't have that information at this point.
How many people in total are you looking for?
Well, at this point I don't have that information. This will be part of the interview process. This is the sort of information we'll be looking for, just how many people need to be identified and spoken to, and we'll work through that as quickly as possible.
On reflection, I guess there is a black and white thought process. A lot of people think that you did the right thing, but there's obviously a lot of people that think that you overreacted. Upon reflection overnight and in the last 24 hours, do you still firmly believe that this was not overreaction and every attempt was made to investigate this issue before we were placed into lockdown?
I'm confident, and we've reflected on this ourselves. I've spoken to Professor Spurrier, the Chief Executive of Health. I've spoken to my team. We've asked those very same questions of ourselves. We've tested the process that was applied, and both Professor Spurrier and I are satisfied that we made the right call at the time based on the information we had available. Hindsight's a wonderful thing. We don't have the benefit of hindsight at the time we're making these decisions, and it is not a black and white situation that we're dealing with. These are difficult decisions that have to be made, and they're made in the best interests of the wider community.
Commissioner, there are thousands of people that are in quarantine at the moment. Have you had anyone that has been absent when you've checked on
No, I get specific updates in relation to the compliance checking activity, and at this point I haven't had any advice of anybody who's been found to be in breach of the quarantine requirements, which I think is exceptional. It's you only have to look around the city to see, even at this point, after yesterday's announcements about the fact that we are releasing these heavy restrictions at midnight, people are still doing the right thing, and I think that's absolutely commendable of the community. It's one thing I was concerned about with the announcements yesterday, is that we would see people step away from the level of commitment they've shown us so far, but all of the indications are at the moment is everyone's still doing the right thing. We're very happy with that.
Commissioner, can I just ask you
Sorry.
Are there any concerns that this investigation into this gentleman could cause a climate of fear when talking to contact tracers and people might withhold information?
I think Professor Spurrier highlighted that concern yesterday. We are taking a fair and objective approach to this. We don't go in with preconceived